Hey, Kirby's going on with that. Oh, he still fails on that skipping jump rope challenge, but oh well. Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am Piglet here once again, and I'm back for some more yet again for the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Kirby's Epic Yarn / Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn for the Nintendo Wii / Nintendo 3DS. So last time we actually did manage to finish up the forms of the Seekies hide and seek challenges, and especially notable with the forms of the conclusion to the forms of Beatrix Run. So today for this episode, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that originally I was trying to actually finish up the whole game in one video, but I've decided to save it up for next video because obviously for today's episode is the fact that we're going to be starting things off is the forms of the final stage we're going to have to deal with in the forms of Carrie stages, or in this case Carrie's transport, and then after that we can to actually finish it up with the rest of the forms of Beatrix Run, or no, not Beatrix Run, but the forms of Buster's training, so even then that way it will to actually just work out. And then in the next video, especially with the finale of this Let's Play, we'll be able to actually finishing up with Maria's race at the very end. So yeah, let's get to it by the forms of going back into Tempest Towers, and this might actually be the final time doing Carrie's transport, because thankfully though, this one did actually took me about attempts, or in this case one attempt, which is quite surprising because if I was expecting that this level might be a little bit tricky because of all this wind mechanics you have to deal with right there, but the sooner I start to realize about the fact that I recently managed to accomplish this level within no sweat whatsoever, aside from occasional tripping up moments, but apart from that though, especially noticeable by the forms of trying to actually toss him into the forms of the actual throne, I think I might be alright with that. But even then though, luckily though, this little platform right there managed to actually just stand out, so even then though, that if you really want to actually be very cautious and be careful throughout, then be sure to actually not waste your time, and especially noticeable you don't can't afford to get hit several times, because again, if you get hit several times, then you're most likely gonna have to get yourselves a time over on that particular objective. So, and that is pretty much it, but in forms of Carrie's transport. So there's only one level to actually conclude, because there are literally only about 12 levels but in forms of Carrie's transport, which I will give that some credit, the fact that at least it gives us lesser amount of levels to go through. But even then, I don't mind about it too much, but it still is one of my least favorite challenges to deal with because of the fact that you constantly need to carry him over into the forms of the throne, but that's just how I think it is. So I'll meet you guys back in the forms of Patch Castle, so, you know. Alright, so once again, we've actually just managed to let that message being activated, and that way we could to get ourselves our Carrie's fabrics. Even then though, we've actually gone so close towards the end of the forms of fabrics collectathon for this point and throughout. Still have no idea why that the loading screen takes a little bit more time to actually load up Kirby's flat for some reason, or in this case Kirby's pad, in the forms of the American version if you ever played that version. I think the reason being for that is because it's all customizable, so there we go, that's pretty much it by the forms of Carrie's fabric right there. And now let's go ahead and move on to the forms of Buster's training, so that way we could to finish one off, and we could to actually deal with the rest of the stages during later time, especially noticeable in the next video. Then we would to actually conclude this Let's Play, and we could to actually just move on to the next set of Let's Plays, mainly by the forms of the next Kirby games we like to tackle through, but in forms of you know, Kirby Superstar Ultra for the Nintendo DS, but that could be wait until next year. So here we go, onto the forms of Wispy's Forest. Now this one might actually took me about 3 attempts on this particular objective, but it's most likely because of the fact that you need to be exactly right on with that specific shots, mainly if you want to have yourselves an easier time with this mission, especially you really don't want to get yourselves time over and over again. The reason being for that is because you need to be exactly right on with just trying to actually aim it upwards instead of the normal, simple, straightforward, straight lines. So even then, that makes it pure obvious to see how this will go, because, you know, the missions themselves can get pretty tricky and difficult, especially noticeable in Dreamland World. But, the matter what though is the fact that I'm pretty sure the reason why I waste my time on the forms of this mission itself on off screen is most likely because I have no idea what I was going to be doing. But as long as you know we're able to actually be good at this, then you would able to actually classify for able to dominate this. Even then though, that's about it for Wispy's Forest. Now, if you guys can clearly tell about the fact that this is still post-commentary, I'm pretty sure this might actually be one of the shortest videos of the bunch. Most notably because we've only just done one stage, but in forms of Carrie's transport, and then we can able to actually deal with the rest of the remaining stages in the forms of Buster's trading. And I would able to do Mary's race at the very end for that point, but again, we'll save that for the next video. So even then though, because I just want to save that up until we get to the finale point of the Let's Play. So if that's the case, regrettably, then you probably should already know. So I'm going to start talking about the next level after this level is done. But as you can see, we're going to go back into Tempest Towers once again. The next level after this is going to be the forms of takes place in Cloud Palace. Cloud Palace is the only level I did manage to able to did this no problem on the normal regular level, despite that it is easily one of the toughest levels of the game, most notably because of bottomless pit heavy and all that stuff. And especially noticeable with the forms of the gold medal requirements, it's actually kind of tricky as well, which I've already established that before, but even then though, you probably recognize for that point. For the enemy rush, or in this case the Buster's trading version of the Cloud Palace, from about recording attempts, even including off-screen, there are about 20. Now you guys are probably thinking that you still have a retry option at this point. But yes, I did have several failures. I have several failures off-screen. Now, every time when I failed on this, sometimes I actually did fail on the forms of Cozy Cabin several times in Beatrix Run. So yes, I still managed to able to did this, but I actually didn't mean by recording attempts, but again, I'm probably not going to include the failure attempts at the very end, so we'll just have to get started straight into this. Now, here's the thing about this level though. Although this level itself is pretty simple by the forms at the very end of the section, but the enemy placement is goddamn cheap at times. Even especially noticeable if you're able to actually get to this narrow portions of the actual on-rails shooting section, and sometimes you are able to actually get hit by several enemies several times, mainly by the forms of the Greco Jr. enemies, and the actual projectiles are very dangerous, and it can easily be unavoidable if you do not know what you're doing. And the cheap enemy placement shown up can get pretty stingy at times. Sometimes they'll temporarily team up with you, or in this case, the actual the enemies themselves will temporarily team up together, and then it's trying to able to actually stopping me to able to do some enemy destruction and all that stuff. And no matter what though, that because I said this before, this actually took me about 20 attempts, most notably because I swear to God, I was directly hit that enemy from the, I think it was actually the bottom section right there, when I was trying to deal with the Belton Birds. In fact, Belton Birds with the missiles or even these rockets is by far the most dangerous enemies in this mission. And whatever you do, don't go near to that unless if you're able to actually step back a bit, because if you do step back a bit, then you will be fine, as long as you're able to actually just realize about the fact that you can't afford to get hit, because if you do get hit, then you're probably going to get yourself to time over significantly. So there's the new yarn fabric, which I'm assuming that we're now going to be approached into the forms of the continuation of these fabrics based off from bosses this time around, which I'm assuming that's what it is. So, even though technically speaking that we've already got ourselves the Hot Wings fabric already, but aside from that though, we haven't got the rest. Like, we've already got both Hot Wings fabric, I'm assuming, and especially noticeable for Yin Yarn fabric. And now we're going to be moving on to Weird Woods. Now this one did took me about 2 attempts, unlike any forms of Cloud Palace, because there aren't as many bullcrap moments here and there. But apart from that though, as long as you know what you're doing with the actual controlling the UFO, you will be fine for the most part. So even then though, that makes a little bit of suggestions there. And also that with the forms of the actual, like, electricity ability, or in this case, the actual spark ability, whenever you're trying to suck up as many enemies as possible, it will become very handy, especially noticeable when we actually get into, like, next set of few enemies as far as this will concern. In fact, I've only got 2 more enemies left. Sometimes these bumpers attempt to throw you off a bit, especially noticeable is trying to able to knock you back down. But apart from that, though, it's not too much of a problem, I feel like. But even then, that you're going to be super fast on that specific stage, even by the forms of the actual, like, the time limit you have to work on with. So, if that's the case, regrettably, then yeah, you can probably tell for that point. So here's the Fangora fabric, based off from the boss of World 1. And I wonder what stage we're going to be going to next, I wonder. Well, we're going to be going back to Dark Manor, but this time around, though, we need to able to obviously defeat the enemies. Now, this one also takes me 2 attempts, because just like in the forms of how it does it in Weird Woods, it's probably because of how the fact that, well, you know how you realize how the fact that this level is actually in pure dark, and as a result, we need to able to actually just to be pay attention to that at all times, unless if you're able to actually try to find the rest of the remaining enemies. But even then, though, it might take a lot of practice if you manage to recognize the actual level layout. So yeah, you probably expect it at this point, but even then, though, as far as the finale video is concerned, enjoy tomorrow, because today was actually forms of the 3rd of October in 2018, so we've naturally got ourselves about 2 more days to go until, well, Super Mario Party is about to be releasing. And I do apologize if I accidentally hit the microphone when I was getting close to my mouth, so I really do apologize for that, but I digress. So yeah, the only enemy I was missing on for my first attempt, it was probably this enemy, because it was well hidden at first, because it's all in pitch black, but it's just as one of those enemies, how the fact that you weren't able to actually see it easily, but nope, apparently I actually did ignore that. So even then, it's one of those things, how the fact that if you have a first time experiencing this mission, but then next you notice how the fact that you're probably not going to easily see it coming, so anyways, now so the 15th and the final enemy is just right over there, and there we go. So that's pretty much it by the forms of Dark Manor when it comes to, like, defeating enemies. It's not too much of a challenge, but it's just one of those things, how the fact that if you weren't able to actually just to think about if you ever to destroy every single enemies, but next thing you notice is how the fact that you weren't able to actually missing by 1. Kinda like how it did in the forms of the video game version of A Bug's Life, in the forms of, like, the riverbed canyon level in the forms of that particular game, in level 5, ironically. And if you think you're off by 1 enemy, but in forms of trying to able to get for 100% through everything on that level, and you know, the one you're gonna have to utilize the golden berry weapon, which I'll admit though right away though is the fact that I actually did have more attachment to the forms of the video game version of A Bug's Life on the PC version back in the day, but more than to the actual film, in my opinion. I don't know, because the actual film, I mean, it wasn't a bad film in my opinion, but it's definitely not the most Pixar's best in my opinion, because, well, I just found that to be kind of a more likely a somewhat of a giddy-ish, well, not so much of a giddy-ish, but it's just pure and simple. But even then, it doesn't have, well, it does have some darker tone here and there, but in the end, I just don't think that film doesn't settle well with me, unlike any forms of Ants, which I still kind of prefer, honestly, because of, you know, more action, and especially noticeable by the forms of how darker the film is, despite the forms of, unnecessary, like, violence and swear words and all that stuff. But either way, it kind of reminds me like Shadow the Hedgehog as far as the actual video game of that game, but I digress. So here we go, folks, on to the forms of Boom Boatyard, aka one of my least favorite levels in the entire game, because obviously because this screen is constantly scrolling, and once again, just like in the forms of the previous 2 levels, which are Weird Woods and especially noticeable for Dark Manor, this one also took me 2 attempts, because, well, if you manage to get hit by the missiles from the above from it, you're really gonna get screwed over. And other than that, as long as you're able to actually be specifically fast on that specific section, you would be fine for the most part. But even then, again, it's one of those things, how the fact that sometimes auto-scrolling sections can get can take forever though to able to actually get a pacing going. But apart from that though, it's not too shabby for the most part though. But again, it took me 2 attempts. On the other hand, when we get to I'm thinking this might actually be the last level we're going to be doing with any forms of Buster's Trading for this point, and that will have to be Evergreen Lift. Now, this level might actually took me 3 attempts on this one, because, well, the first 2 attempts, the first attempt I did done, I accidentally got myself my times up. I think it's most likely to be because of how the fact with the forms of these little cannon enemies, they're always trying to freeze you up, and just like in the forms of chilies, you're able to actually decrease your time. So even though that you have to be extremely cautious with that specific projectile, and that can be say replaced by the forms of some trial and error moments here and there, which can be still present here. And apart from that though, I think it might be alright as long as you're able to actually just to be very, very careful, especially noticeable, you know, how the fact that how dangerous the projectiles can be, and especially don't get me started by the forms of trying to get yourself flattened, because as you can tell, getting squashed, especially getting to the bottomless pit, also counts as far as like decreasing your time, which makes a little bit of a much of a challenge. But apart from that though, as long as you're able to know what you're doing, then you would be fine. But it's just one of those things how the fact that these annoying snowball Waddle Dees keep on throws you off a little bit, especially noticeable how the fact that if you're almost getting touched by the forms of these little icy cannon projectiles and stuff like that, you temporarily get frozen. And also that just like before, any forms of Beatrix run, you do need to realize about the fact that you do need to utilize the actual like the thread thingy knob until you're able to actually continuously going up. So, and I think that's pretty much it from everything in the forms of, well, Buster's Trading. So yeah, we've already done about like quite a few levels from Buster's Trading, which I actually did miss count of how much levels that we've done. Even though that, again, I'm probably not going to show you guys the forms of the failure attempts at the very end of the every single episode, because I don't know, it just feels like a waste of time when it comes to editing and all that stuff, because I don't feel like it. So I made you guys back for one last time and able to actually just oh, I forgot to able to ask him quickly. I don't know if you can able to actually do that, or you can just simply just do the level regularly, which even though I always attempt to do that for some reason, but I don't know what it is though. So anyways, we'll meet you guys back yet again, and yeah. Alright, so now the message pops up, so that way we can able to head back to Kirby's flats for about, I would say for the 5th time in a row so far, which even then, it might be more than that, but we'll see what happens there. Let me know in the comments below if how the fact that how many times do we able to actually explore Kirby's flat for this point. So anyways though, now we've actually accomplished every single missions in the forms of, you know, Buster's Trading, and now we can able to actually get the next fabric, which appears to be, well, Buster's fabric. Appears to be somewhat similar to the honey hexagon type of pattern right there, which admittedly though is kind of cool. But anyways though, before we end off this video off, I need to able to actually just customize something real quickly. It's the fact that I did not even realize how the fact that I can able to customize my very own wallpaper, especially noticeable floor as well. So even now, that's the only thing I'm missing out on that specific part, which I know some people attempt to do that as well, but let's just go ahead and just select. That doesn't look too pleasing. I think this might be pleasant. Oh wait, no, I think I haven't clicked the right option. So let's try this again. I think this will be alright for now. And as far as the wallpaper is concerned, which one I did select it though? Oh yeah, the musical notes, because I feel like the melody time or the melody town level is pretty much the best level in the entire game in my opinion, so I digress. So, with that being said for this point, I think I should probably end things off for this point right there. I know this video is kind of short as I said this before, but we just need to able to do it individually as it is. So, yeah, join me next time on Let's Play Kirby's Epic Yarn for the Nintendo Wii. It's the fact that we're going to be doing a grand finale of this game's Let's Play to able to actually conclude with the forms of Mario's race in Dream Time, with every single level throughout. So yeah, see you guys next time. Later, fellas.